Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we are talking about team stress. What is it? What are the signs of it? And how do we go about fixing it? So without further ado, let's hop right in. Hey leaders, I'm your coach Adam. Here to have an honest talk about leadership, the obstacles you might face, and how to refine your leadership skills to help you become the leader I know you are. So let's grab a drink, sit back, relax, and have a chat. So let's talk a little bit about stress. And I'll be honest with you, this conversation already is stressing me out. I know, I can hear you groan, but that joke was worth it. And so what the hell is stress? And this is very important to kind of talk about because I've sat through way too many workshops and I've listened to way too many conversations, and I've had many clients that talk about stress, but they actually don't know what stress is. They feel stressed, but they don't understand what stress is. And if we as leaders are going to work with our team and manage that stress, we must first understand what stress is. And so stress is a biological response that is designed to protect us from a dangerous situation or life-threatening. And I know what you're thinking, but Adam, I feel stressed out when I do an exam, or I feel stressed out in safe environments, or I feel stressed out when I'm talking with my wife. Fair enough. But here's the thing to remember. The human body is an incredibly complicated and complex machine, but it's also a very stupid and dumb machine. And what I mean by that is the stress response is quite complicated, but your body doesn't understand the difference between a bear trying to kill you and a paper or project that you're working on. It treats it as if it's the same thing. It just assumes, hey, I'm going to die, and as a result, I need to kick the body into a stress response to save its life. Now, the thing to be aware of is short-term stress is actually quite healthy for humans. Most humans love short-term stress. In fact, that's why we watch horror movies. That's why we like to go on roller coasters. That's why we like to be scared, is to feel that stress response, that flight, fight, or freeze response. But here's the rub. If we are experiencing acute stress, and this acute stress doesn't go away within the matter of minutes to hours, then bad things can happen to us. And if this continues and persists for longer than 6 months, then we might be facing burnout if it's at work, which we talked about in our previous podcast episode. So if you're interested in burnout, go listen to that one. But anyways, so what really happens when we're stressed out? Well, a lot of things happen, but our body releases a bunch of hormones into our bloodstream. And the two major hormones that it releases are the first one being adrenaline. And adrenaline is responsible for increasing your heart rate. It elevates your blood pressure. It supplies you with more energy. And the reasoning for this is because it needs to feed your muscles and your brain as much oxygen and as much sugar as possible, because we're getting ready to either run away from this threat or fight this threat. So if you have ever been feeling quite stressed out and you notice you feel that you just need to get up, you need to do something, you need to go for a walk, you want to work out, you want to do something, it's because you have adrenaline coursing through your veins. And this is a very normal thing. But the other hormone that is released is called cortisol. And cortisol is also very important because it suppresses all the non-essential functions of the human body. Because again, we are in a life-threatening situation. So all of a sudden, we don't need to do a bunch of things. For example, we don't need to have sex anymore. It's going to suppress our libido. It's going to suppress our appetite to have sex. And then it's also going to start suppressing our digestive system. Have you ever wondered why, when you're really stressed out, you don't want to eat? is because of cortisol. Cortisol is suppressing that because, again, we don't have time to eat. We don't want to eat. We want to live another day. And another really important thing that it does is it actively suppresses our immune system. This is why we tend to see people that are in school come exam time get really sick. It's because they're very stressed out because, again, their body thinks that the paper or the exam is literally trying to kill them, and so it's releasing cortisol into their bloodstream, which suppresses their immune system, so their immune system can no longer fight off the germs and the bacteria around them, and then they get really, really, really sick. And that's really the stress response in a nutshell. And for myself, I actually went through this stress response all last week. I was buying my brand new car, as some of you dear listeners were aware of. I recently bought a new car, but it was being factory made and shipped in, which meant that I had to wait. Well, I got the phone call last week that it came in. I had to sign a bunch of paperwork. I was financing the car, which meant that I had to deal with interest rates. And the whole process with it was exceedingly stressful because I was quoted on a financing rate of 3%. And then as I'm signing for the car, it's now at 4%, which adjusts my monthly payments. All of a sudden I need to make more money or put a bigger down payment on the car to keep my monthly payments to what I need them to be. On top of that, now that I have this new car, I have to sell my old car. I have to figure out how to do that. I need to figure out who wants to buy my car. Whole thing in regards to that. And then on top of that, I also am doing a hiring process at my work where I am leading the charge. I am hiring a new person. I'm doing all the interviews. On top of that, I also have a licensing exam that I'm preparing for and that I have to book. And I had all these things happening all at once. Well, my body believed that I was under threat, that I was going to die, and that these things were trying to kill me. So it actively put me through a stress response to try to save my life. The problem being is that I wasn't going to die from any of these things. And as a result, I had terrible night sleeps because, again, cortisol, I didn't really touch on this, but cortisol does not allow you to get good night's sleeps. I got a little bit sick there because, again, my immune system got suppressed. I was feeling antsy, anxious. I couldn't rest or relax because I had adrenaline pumping through my veins. And it was just not a fun experience all around. But eventually I was able to end the response. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about that later. But as leaders, we need to understand that there are going to be times when our team is going to feel stressed, and that stress could be coming from a multitude of factors or things. But first and foremost, we need to ask ourselves, what are the signs that our team is stressed? If they are stressed, what you as a leader are going to start noticing is you're actually going to start noticing aggression within your team. You're going to start noticing individuals fighting amongst each other, getting short-tempered with each other. You're going to start noticing a lot more clashes at work. On top of that, you might start noticing people being tired all the time, people wanting to sleep, people just having low energy. That's not a good sign if your people aren't happy, if they're not ready to go, not in the driver's seat. And if they're in the back seat, feeling exhausted and just wanting to sleep, something's going on there, especially if everybody on your team's feeling that way. You might notice that they're starting to withdraw. You'll go into the break room and nobody's talking. Everybody's in their own little space. Nobody's really mingling. Nobody's working together. And that's something to be aware of. I know I've heard many leaders complain that their team's not working together. Well, the reasoning that they might not be working together anymore is because they might be withdrawing because of all the stress that they're under. Then you might also start noticing gossip happening in the workplace. Gossip is just another form of aggression. It's another form of violence. It is not physical violence, it's more mental violence, and that stuff's kind of interesting, but we're not going to talk really in depthly about gossip. But if your team's stressed out, be aware that you might notice an increase in gossip. You might also start seeing substance abuse more rampant at your place of work. Most times people don't see it unless they're smokers at work. I remember working at one particular health center where the last of every single month was absolute hell on earth. It was horrendously awful for a number of reasons. But what was always interesting is the amount of smokers on the deck puffing away always increased at the end of the month. They were always out there. The amount of cigarettes they were going through was unbelievable, and it's because they were all stressed out. And then another thing that you might start recognizing is your team might start feeling anxious. And this anxiety is going to really come in the form of either gossip behind your back, because these individuals are feeling stressed, they're feeling worried, they're feeling concerned, they don't know where they're going, and their flight or fight response is kicking in. So they might start gossiping about you or about the organization. You might also notice it in your team communication, where you'll have team meetings and nobody wants to speak up. Well, why don't they want to speak up? Because they might have anxiety that they could get into trouble, or they might voice the wrong opinion, and that would make their life harder. And again, it's because they are in a stress response. They feel their body, I should quote, feels that their life is in danger, and as such is doing what it believes necessary to keep it safe. To show you a little bit more of a real world example of the stress response in action, I remember my days as a line cook. And first and foremost, I tip my hat to all the chefs, all the line cooks out there, because that is an incredibly exhausting and stressful job. And what was interesting is, particularly on the Friday and Saturday evenings when the dinner crowds was coming through, the stress level of the team was always super high, because we had 500, 600, 700 people entering our doors, eating meals, and leaving in the course of 3-4 hours. And so it's go, 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 go. And the stress response in the kitchen particularly was through the roof. First and foremost, the aggression that I saw between the line cooks, between the sous chef and the cooks, between the owner and the sous chef, was unbelievable. If you've seen Hell's Kitchen, that was the level of aggression that we were facing. And it's because, again, we were under stress. We were under unbelievable amounts of stress. But the problem was, because we were under this stress, because there was all this aggression, because there were literally swear words being thrown back and forth between team members, what ended up happening is people started withdrawing. They started keeping their heads down. They just started doing their work. They didn't care about anything else. They didn't want to help anybody else out. They just wanted to do their work and go home. They were just looking for a paycheck. This, of course, meant that there was a lot of anxiety coming up for the team. People were very concerned about being yelled at, about being disciplined publicly and humiliated, which didn't help things. On top of that, I've never met a long-term line cook or chef that doesn't have one alcohol or smoking problem. I would always catch my fellow line cooks and or the chef out back having a smoke, because again, it was stressful. Anytime they could have a quick smoke outside, they were doing it, because they were right back into the muck of it once they finished that smoke, and they were being yelled at, they were being screamed at. It was go, 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 go. And then on top of that, at the very end of the shift, everybody was always exhausted. They were fatigued. They were tired. They didn't want to do anything. many times I remember talking to chefs and cooks, and I'd be like, so do you cook at home? And they'd be like, no, I don't cook at home. I work 16 hours a day out here. Why the hell am I going to cook at home? I make mac and cheese, or I go out and eat. Like, I'm not interested in cooking. And most of them would just say that they would just go home and sleep. And that's just all because of how stressful the industry was. Short term, this is not a bad thing. Long term, unless we can get a handle on it, bad things are going to happen. And what we're going to particularly notice on our team is if we don't get these signs of stress under control, what we're going to face is we're going to face worker burnout long term. Short term, we're going to start seeing people increasingly taking their sick days because they might actually become sick. Because again, cortisol is suppressing their immune system. We're going to start noticing people screwing up more. Your team's not going to be able to come through with projects. They're not going to be as sharp anymore because again, flight or fight, we're getting tunnel vision. We are suppressing how smart we are because again, we are trying to save ourselves from the bear, which is whatever is causing this stress. We're not going to be communicating anymore. We're going to start seeing staff turnover. We're going to be seeing bullying and harassment at the workplace. And ultimately, if we're not careful, we're going to see the disintegration of the team that we have created. So taking care of this stress is very important. So if we can identify that our team is under stress, the next question is, how the hell do we deal with it? And that's kind of a multi-staged answer. First and foremost, we need to, one, recognize that our team is stressed out. The next is to ask yourself, what is causing this stress? Is it because maybe somebody died? Is there a bully in our midst? Are we micromanaging our team? What is going on that is stressing our team so much? Once we figure that out, the next phase is to fix that stress. If we're micromanaging our team too much, we need to pull off on micromanaging our team. If we're taking on way too many projects and shoving them onto our team, we need to stop doing that and focus on one project at a time. And again, to really repeat this, for that long-term stress management, to prevent that burnout, we need to identify that cause of stress and then fix it. In the short term, here are some things that we can do to start dealing with that stress. First, if we have a million projects on the go with our team, we actually need to stop that altogether. We need to pump the brakes and we need to focus our team on one project at a time. The other projects don't matter because again, we are trying to reset our team, get them out of that stress response, back into their normal response, and then we can move forward. So let's pump the brakes, focus our team on one thing, one project, one task. And once we have refocused our team, we need to start creating that downtime, that time when nothing is going on, and be very conscientious of this because again, our team is stressed out. They're not thinking properly. They're not thinking rationally. And that's because they're in this heightened sense of awareness because again, they might die. That's what their body believes. And we need to start creating quiet periods, slow periods for our team. One of the best ways to do that is to start doing team building. Stressful situations are the perfect time to say to your team, hey, we're going to do a potluck. Hey, let's go out bowling. Hey, let's go out drinking after work. Creating these team building experiences here in the now to pull people out of that isolation, to create those social groups and to increase support amongst each other. Oftentimes, what I always find is sometimes we kind of have to force our team to take time out, to slow down, and to do these team building events. To kind of help explain this, I've had many nurses who has been very stressed out. They screwed up, something's going on, a lot of stuff's happening. The gist of it is they are very stressed out. And when they're stressed out, they start panicking, they start screwing up, and they start withdrawing, they start getting angry with people around them. And I've had to tell them, you need to stop. And the reason why I have to interfere with them is because I can't have a panicky, stressed out nurse on the floor because people can die, especially if they're dealing with medications and they're not thinking properly. They could overdose a patient and then the patient's dead. And then we had a bad problem that just went from bad to worse. And so oftentimes when I see nurses spiraling out of control because of all this stress, I physically take them away and I say, listen, I am banning you from working for the next hour. I want you to go out. I want you to go get something to eat. I don't want you back on the premise for a full hour. I need you to reset. And they said, I don't need a full hour. And I say, I don't care if you don't need a full hour or not. I need you to be gone here for a full hour. And when you come back and once you've reset, let's keep going because I need you on the floor. But I intentionally force them off the floor because if I'm not strict with these nurses, if I don't put my foot down, if I don't say, you have to leave here, and I don't put in consequences, then what ends up happening is I get the same old story of, don't worry, I'm fine, I don't need it, I know best. And then they keep working and then they screw up. And again, bad things happen. And at the end of the day, we want things to go from bad to better, not bad to worse. And so oftentimes we need to create that downtime. We need to force people to have those team building events because they're in this stress response. They might not see a need for it. They might try to rationalize their way out of something and create a situation that went from bad to worse, because at the end of the day, we either want a bad situation to stay bad or we want a bad situation to go from bad to good. We don't want to go in the worst direction. So again, sometimes we have to force and put boundaries on our team to kind of get them into that healthy headspace, which actually leads well into setting boundaries. Many times we might notice that our team members are setting bad boundaries when it comes to their work life and their personal life. And I've worked with one leader where they intentionally set boundaries and said, you cannot work after 4:30. And if you attempt to work after 4:30, we will have disciplinary action. And that's how bad the stress levels were at this job. Is they had to tell their team, you can't work past these hours. Because again, their team was really bad at setting these boundaries. Another thing to kind of help our team work through the stress is create mindfulness. And I'm not going to get too much into what mindfulness is, but the gist of it is that mindfulness is being present in the moment. Think in the long lines of meditation. Meditation is very much being mindful and practicing mindfulness. And mindfulness is particularly important either at the beginning of the day to set the mood or the tone, or after a stressful event happens to reset the team. And we as leaders need to start implementing that. So let's go over a lot of what we talked about. First and foremost, stress is a flight or fight response that our body is going to initiate because it thinks it's literally going to die. We as leaders need to be very aware of this response because if left unchecked, it'll cause burnout, we'll have increased sick days, we're going to have staff turnover, a lot of nasty stuff. Some of the signs of a stressed out team are increased aggression, fatigue, people withdrawing from each other, anxiety amongst your team, increase in smoking or drug use, or gossip. You might notice that there's more gossip, or that gossip is starting at your workplace. And how we're going to fix this stress is first, we need to figure out what's causing this stress, and then we need to fix this stress. We talked a little bit about that in our burnout discussion in the last podcast. But short term, what we need to do is we need to create downtime for our team. We need to do team building events. We need to start setting boundaries with our team. And we need to start carving out mindfulness time for our team to help them reset and help them really get back into that healthy space. And with that, we're going to end today's episode. I hope that didn't stress you out too much. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Take care. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, give it a like, and share it with a friend. And if you're ready to take the next leap and improve your leadership skills, head over to www.seedingthelead.com and book your free coaching session today. Yes, Gary, I know I didn't pay attention to you for over an hour while I recorded this. Come here, come get some snuggles.